Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday, August 30th. Happy almost Labor Day. Happy almost 3-day weekend. So, what I'm going to do is these videos, my plan is to record recap videos each week to discuss what we went over during the live lecture. So, that is what this is. So, for those that don't know me, my name is Glenn Carcella. I am your instructor for DAC 2341. Quick intro, I am a substance abuse counselor. I currently work in the field. I manage an outpatient location here in Katy. So if you have any questions about what it's like or where to go from here, please, I'm an open book, and I'm also in long term recovery. So I don't mind answering any questions about what that's like either. So without further ado, let's get started. What I want to do is just to provide a really kind of simple, quick ish recap about what was discussed during the live lecture and to keep everybody hopefully on track. So first thing we did is we went around and just did some introductions, and then we went over the syllabus. So in terms of the syllabus, you all should be familiar with it. It's available via Blackboard. Either have it downloaded or just have it know where it is to reference specifically for due dates, my contact information, and what's expected in terms of like how I grade and or not really how I grade, but what what your assignments are. So the student learning objectives are on the first page. Flipping over to the fourth page, I have the grading component. So this course is made up of 8 modules over the 16-week semester. Excuse me, almost died. So 8 modules over the course of 16 weeks. Each module will have a discussion board. So the discussion boards, there's going to be one for each module, so 8 total, valued at 25 points apiece. Um, So 8 discussion board posts, 25 points apiece, totaling to 400 points. You will have a midterm, which is valued at 100 points. You will have 2 essays, each one are 100 points each, totaling 200. And then you will have a final exam, which is totaling 200 points. Altogether, total points possible for this course is 700. I will tell you the same thing that I told those in the live lecture. If you just follow the instructions, do the work, answer the questions, you will do well in this course. This isn't an English course. I'm not really so much interested in, writing style, although I don't take off for grammar and syntax and spelling in the discussion prompts, but during the essays, I will expect you to have them proofread and spell checked and that sort of thing. Once again, I'm not expecting MLA format or APA or anything like that, but I do expect during the essays that you have kind of done some quality checks to make sure that they are clear, coherent, appropriate spelling, that sort of things. But I don't take off for spelling or anything like that for the discussion boards. So that's pretty much the assignments and what makes up the course. If you just show up and do the work, you will do well. In terms of the modules, I'm just going to talk about where we left off for the live lecture this past Tuesday. So we started with module 1, which is Introduction to Substance Use Disorders for people with co-occurring disorders. And essentially what we just did is we talked a little bit about what it was like working in the field. We had some class participation, and we just went over, started going over the PowerPoint. So I'm not going to go over the PowerPoint word for word. I'm just going to give you an overview about what we talked about in class and then where we left off. So we started with talking about, what substance use disorder is, the definition, and I gave you the abbreviation for it, which is SUD. You're going to be seeing that a lot. You're also going to want to familiarize yourself with the abbreviations. So I do my best to include the abbreviations with the definitions in this course because working in the field, you're going to be exposed to a lot of this, not only in the way that you write, you chart as it's referred to, but also like you're going to be getting documentations from third parties, doctor's office, psychiatrist's office. And if you don't know what those definitions are, it's just going to make it a little bit more difficult for you to understand what's being said. But it's super easy. You'll get it. You're going to be exposed to it frequently in the field. So just know that just for shorthand, familiarize yourself with the abbreviations. So we talked about what the definition of substance use disorder is. We talked about the DSM, which we're on version 5 right now. So you need to know what that is and why we use it. A lot of us keep a copy of it in our office, although there is a digital copy. It's pretty much um, our go-to reference. It's like our Bible. It has anything. It answers any questions about diagnoses and mental health, and standards that we use in terms of assessing and screening and diagnosing in our field. So DSM stands for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and we are on version 5. In the DSM-5, it talks about the criteria for diagnosing substance use disorder. So when we get into the module on screening assessments, I will provide uh, everyone with a blank template about what a screening could potentially look like in the field when you're actually sitting down with a brand new possible client and you're asking them the questions in order to determine, are they appropriate for treatment? Are they appropriate for the level of care you work at? So there are 11 criteria for diagnosing substance use for you. There are 11 criteria for diagnosing substance use disorder, and we talked about what mild, moderate, and severe uh, diagnosis of substance use disorder looks like. Um, so those criteria are included in your PowerPoint, as well as how many criteria need to be met in order to qualify as mild, moderate, or severe. Moving on, we just went over some general definitions. A lot of you may already be familiar with this, especially if you already have some experience in the field, or even if you're in recovery yourself. So kind of basic stuff, but it's good to know what the definitions are, because my understanding of the word addiction from like the street or when I was in active use might not be the clinical definition. So we talked about addiction, tolerance, withdrawal. We talked about uh, the specific drugs that have fatal withdrawals, and it's important for us as clinicians to know, especially when it comes to screening and assessments. You want to make sure you screen a person appropriately and send them where they need to be. So, for instance, where I'm at in Katy, I run an outpatient location, which is only where people come. They spend a couple hours with me each day, couple days a week, and then they go home. So they're not medically monitored. There's no doctor here. Um, there's no nurses on site. So if somebody were to come in day one and say like, "Hey, Glenn, like I'm, I want to receive help for my alcohol problem," and I'm assessing this person, and they tell me that they drink 10 double scotches a day before they fall asleep, and they've been doing that for 20 years and they've never stopped. If I'm screening them appropriately and asking the right questions and collecting the appropriate amount of data, they are not appropriate for outpatient level of care, because once they start, even if they're motivated to start, that cold turkey cessation could result in a seizure. It could result in, some kind of like fatal withdrawal symptom. So we want to just make sure that we're assessing people appropriately. So just being aware of the 5 drugs that do cause fatal withdrawals, which are alcohol, benzos, barbiturates, opiates or opioids, and then GHB. We also talked about dependence, craving, relapse, recovery. We went over co occurring disorders. We talked a little bit about harm reduction, relapse prevention, motivational interviewing, behavioral addiction. And we started to talk a little bit about the biopsychosocial model of uh, addiction, but we're going to actually do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more next Tuesday during the live lecture. The last thing is we did go over the levels of care. So levels of care meaning detox, residential, partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, supportive outpatient. So levels of care is exactly what it sounds like. It's the level that a client is being treated at, and typically they will start at one level and they will complete and they will step down. So the full continuum of care, as we call it, would be a person that goes through the different levels of care, and they're being treated accordingly. So detox, as it applies, it's pretty much the start when people come in and they need to be medically stable through detox, which is an inpatient facility where a person would stay there. Residential, same. And then the outpatient levels of care, which are PHP, IOP, and SOP. So you're going to want to know these. I can promise you that these definitions specifically on levels of care are going to be in uh, the midterm and the final. Now on the PowerPoint, I don't have the slide labeled as levels of care. Like that term is not even on the PowerPoint. So, but just know that when you get to the page where it talks about RTC, PHP, IOP, those are the levels of care that we treat clients at in the field of substance use disorder treatment. We talked about what an IUR is, which is an individual utilization review. Next Tuesday, I'm actually going to bring you a completed one and a blank one so we can all see like what that process is like. And essentially, that's going to be a big part of your job as a clinician on the documentation side, which is communicating to the insurance companies about uh, why a person needs to stay in treatment. So you're gonna love them, you're gonna hate them. I have a love hate relationship with the IURs. But with that being said, you're going to want to understand. I mentioned the abbreviations, but you're going to want to know how to talk the clinical language, not only for you because it makes your job easier, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be talking clinical language to you in email, in treatment plans, in progress to notes from, coming from somebody's coming to you from a facility. Like, let's say they just left a detox facility and they've got a MSE, which is known as a mental essentially like a mental health evaluation, a mental status exam. You're going to want to know what some of those terms mean. So just familiarize yourself with what's on the PowerPoint. These are not the only terms. There are more terms that I've been thinking about that I will expose you to, but I will create that document and put it in Blackboard at a later time. So that's pretty much where we got for the live lecture. Um, I might, like I said, I plan on doing these weekly module updates for those as needed just to provide you a little bit more exposure and redundancy and context to the course. But that's pretty much all I got for y'all. Have a phenomenal Labor Day, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will see y'all next Tuesday.